Hey everyone, Sandhills shooter here, and as you can see, I am not actually in Lincoln today at the Second Amendment rally. I would love to be at that rally, but Old Man Winter just decided he's going to move in and stay at least one more weekend here in the area, and so the snowpocalypse that we talked about this morning on the Caliber Corner chat, it finally made it to where I live too. And so we just decided we weren't going to risk life and limb to get on the road and make a 2.5 hour one-way road trip. So we decided we're going to stay home. And now one of the things that was going to happen at the rally, if I had been there, the organizers had said that they want some people to speak. And I was going to be able to get to say a few words and maybe get some of my thoughts out during that rally. And so I wanted to be able to go ahead and take the speech that I had prepared and read that to you guys right now, just so that the thoughts that I had, I wanted to get them out to the world, and this way I still get to do that, albeit not live in Lincoln. But here's going to be my contribution to the 2A Capitol rally today. So there's a couple things that people have been talking about lately, a lot of issues, a lot of topics that we've been hearing about when it comes to guns. And one of the first ones, one of the biggest ones that people are talking about is how no one is saying that they're going to take away all your guns. No one wants to take everything away. They just want to take away certain guns, only the dangerous ones apparently. I didn't know that there was a gun that wasn't dangerous, but I digress. So anybody that says that no one is trying to take away all your guns, the more I think about that, the more I believe that anybody who can say that is either lying to your face or they're just an idiot. And they're foolishly believing that this is true. I can't see a third direction here. And here's why I feel that way. If we look at all the ways that we have lost some of our freedoms over the years, and we don't have to go back that far, less than 100 years ago, back in 1934, we had the National Firearms Act. That's kind of where gun legislation really began, or began in earnest, and that's where we started losing our freedoms little by little. And of course, the National Firearms Act banned fully automatic machine guns. It banned short-barreled rifles and shotguns. It banned suppressors or silencers, depending on what you call them. It banned a lot of things, or did it? I guess it didn't really ban them. You know, it didn't make them illegal. It just made them highly regulated and restricted. So you could still own such a thing. You just had to buy a $200 tax stamp in order to get such a thing, which is still in place today. Now, if you want to buy a suppressor or have a short-barreled rifle, you can still do it. You just have to get that $200 tax stamp, adds $200 to the price of whatever you're doing, and away you go. And you have to just wait the time, however many months it takes to get that stamp. And now it's more of an inconvenience and just a way that the government makes a little money off of this sale. But back in 1934, that $200, that was the equivalent of $40,000 today, roughly, if we adjust for inflation. So can you imagine right now being told that you can't have a suppressor or you can't have your short-barreled rifle until you come up with $40,000 to pay for this tax stamp? Because I don't know about most of you, but I don't know anybody that has that kind of cash that they can just throw into a tax stamp just to have a suppressor or a short-barreled rifle or what have you. And so you can see where that's pretty prohibitive. Back in 1934, during the Great Depression, we didn't have a lot of people in this country that had a lot of money. And so the few people that could afford that, they got to have their freedoms, they got to have their toys, but apparently freedom wasn't really free even in that sense at that point. So that was the 1934 National Firearms Act. Now in 1968, we had the Gun Control Act that got passed, and this again took away a little bit of our freedom and chipped away at this a little bit more. Now it didn't so much take away any guns as what it really did. It made it illegal to sell guns across state lines without a federal license to do so, because the government wanted to know where these guns are going and who's buying them and who's selling them. The other thing that happened was it required serial numbers so that we can track these guns from place to place to place, and we know what's going on with them. And so it wasn't so much that they were taking things away, but I just can't see any good reason why the government would ever need to know who has the guns, who has how many guns, anything like that. It just seems like if we have the God-given right to keep and bear arms, that we shouldn't have to tell anybody where or when or how or why we're doing this stuff. But it is the law. It has been since 1968, so this is the way that we do things now. 1986, we had the Hughes Amendment, was part of the Firearms Owners Protection Act, and now this FOPA, I'm not really sure exactly who this is protecting. It did ban civilian ownership of fully automatic machine gun firearms. Now, again, we already had these pretty much banned unless you could afford such a thing. But in 1986, it really made it cost prohibitive because anything that was made after that date cannot be owned by a civilian. So if you own a fully automatic firearm, then not only do you have to have all the proper licensing and tax stamps and all that, but it also has to be older than 1986. It cannot be made since then, or you're still in violation of the law. But again, they're not taking away our freedoms. They're not taking away any guns or anything. So I don't really see why this was necessary. It's not like anybody was using these things to commit crimes anyway, but somebody decided that they knew what was best for our safety, and so they decided to protect us as firearm owners. 1994, now that one came along, and we had the Brady Bill, and thank God that this one didn't last forever. It lasted 10 years, and then it had the sunset clause built into it, which made it expire, and everything went back to the way it was. It did a couple different things. It did ban the high-capacity magazines. It banned the assault weapons, or the things that had these cosmetic features that made the gun look scary, but that apparently makes it shootier or killier, or something like that. I'm not really sure, but that's what they said it did. So apparently having a pistol grip, it makes it way more deadly than not having a pistol grip. Another thing that it did is, well, here's what it didn't do. It didn't stop mass shootings. We still had the most notorious of those that happened during that time period was the horrible tragedy in Sandy Hook. That happened during the Brady Bill. And so, excuse me, not Sandy Hook, it was Columbine in Colorado. Columbine happened during that time. And anybody that's fact-checking me, don't holler at me in the comments. I get my notes mixed up sometimes. But Columbine did happen during the Brady Bill era. It didn't stop those animals from taking lives. And so I'm not really sure why that we had to do this. But over the years, we've had lots and lots of different seemingly good gun legislation or common sense gun legislation that just hasn't really done anything that I would call common sense or done any good. But now today, you know, we've got more stuff happening. People are talking about trying to ban AR-15 rifles or AR-15 style rifles or anything that starts with an A. The AK-15s and the AR-47s, we want these gone. People are talking about this stuff like they know more than I do what's good for me when they don't even know what they're talking about with the rifle. But they're getting some stuff done here, and there's a lot of people are even talking about outright banning all semi-automatic firearms. So not only have we made fully automatic to where civilians don't have that access, but now somebody's trying to make it to where you can't have semi-automatic either. We've already seen that happen with bump stocks. Now, how I feel personally about a bump stock is not the point here, whether I think they're a good idea or not, or worthwhile or not. But here's the thing, a bump stock does not change the mechanical functioning of a firearm whatsoever. Just like that pistol grip doesn't change the mechanical functioning of a firearm either. And yet now we have actually got the ATF has come out and said, well, a bump stock turns a gun into a machine gun. Somehow magically bolting this piece of plastic or this piece of aluminum onto a rifle that is semi-automatic makes it into a machine gun. It somehow changes the internal mechanism of the gun. It doesn't, by the way. But apparently that's all you need to do to make a machine gun is just bolt something onto it now, and it doesn't even have to operate differently. So we've got a lot of stuff going on right now that is happening that I don't think is making any sense to me, but I guess I just don't understand what that common sense is. So we've lost fully automatic. We've lost, for a time at least, high capacity magazines. We've lost a lot of things over the years, and we've never gotten anything back in return. And I just don't understand where this is ever going to end. So there is no logical stopping point. We take away semi-automatics, and then somebody's going to do something bad with a bolt-action rifle. Or they're going to look at a lever-action rifle and how fast you can operate that thing. And they're going to say, well, that is also dangerous, and we can't have those. And they're going to go to where you can only have a muzzle loader. You know, you can only have a flintlock musket the way they had in 1776. Then they're going to realize, well, those are 50 caliber musket balls. That's huge. That's too big. You know, they're going to regulate how big the ball can be that comes out of the end of the muzzle. And so there is no logical stopping point. I can only see a logical progression. Anybody who doesn't think that that's true needs to look at the UK right now, where the mayor of London has decided that he should go ahead and outlaw knives in his city because, and he's actually on record saying, he can't see any good reason why anyone should ever own a knife. A knife. Does anybody else find this to be as completely ludicrous as I do? So, like I said, anybody who says they're not out to ban all guns either doesn't understand and isn't smart enough to figure this out, or they're flat out lying to you, because there is no third direction here. Now, when we talk about ARs, another thing that people talk about a lot or ask a lot is, why do you need an AR? And I've had people ask me that, and here's the thing, I don't. I honestly don't need an AR, and thank God I don't have to prove a need to exercise any of my rights. But here's the thing, I don't need a fire extinguisher right now either, because my house, as I look at it, it does not appear to be on fire. So I cannot see any reason right now why I need a fire extinguisher. But you can rest assured that I'm not going to throw it out just because I don't need it right now, and just because I could call the fire department if my house catches on fire. I can trust them to keep me safe, right? I can trust them to keep my house from burning down. Well, no, I can't. They're only human. They can't be everywhere at once. So I need to have a fire extinguisher just in case the need would arise. I am prepared to deal with it. Same thing's going to happen with a firearm. We have police, but they can't be everywhere, and I need to have a firearm just in case the need would arrive. And that's why I need my firearm now. Can you argue whether or not I need an AR or whether or not I need a 30-round magazine or more? We could have that argument all day long, and neither side's going to win. But the problem with that is it's not just about me. Who cares about what I need, but what about my wife? What about if you're married, what about your wife? What about your kids if you're a parent? Who's to say how they should or shouldn't be protected? There are times that I'm away at work and my wife is home alone, and I don't think any of you get the right to tell me that she doesn't have the right to defend herself, or that she doesn't have the right to keep somebody from imposing their will upon her. That's not the way this works. And you look my wife in the eye and tell her that she does not deserve to have the best option available to protect herself, and I don't think that's an argument you're going to want to have with her either. So I hear a lot of things about why do you need an AR, but the fact of the matter is it doesn't come about whether or not we need it. The fact of the matter is there may come a time that we do, and we need to be prepared. So that is exactly why I feel the way that I do about those ARs or any kind of rifle or any kind of firearm whatsoever. One more thing that I keep thinking about, people keep saying, well, if we could just do this or if we could just do that. Well, yeah, if we could remove all the firearms from the country, if we had a magic wand, then yeah, that would be maybe something we could talk about. But that is, again, pretty foolish to talk about. That's like saying, well, if I could catch a unicorn, I'd be rich because I'd be the only one with a unicorn. Well, that's true, but it's not something I better plan my retirement on now, is it? And it is true, if we could wave a magic wand and get rid of guns, then we could have the argument about whether or not the world is safer because of it. But the problem is we can't. We can't get rid of guns. There are too many of them in the country. We don't have registrations. We don't want the government to know what doors to kick down. And the fact of the matter is, even if we pass a law that would outlaw all guns, not everybody is going to abide by that law. Now, I don't get the choice. I have to turn my guns in because it's that or become a felon. And I don't want to be a felon. And so I'm going to have to do that if such a ban were to come about. But you know good and well that there are going to be people, and probably people that you know, that refuse to turn in their guns or to give them up. And so then we have, again, people who are breaking the law. It's almost like the laws don't apply to the people who break them. What a concept! Okay, so here's what's going to happen. There's too many guns. We can't get rid of all of them. And so the only thing that makes sense to me to keep everybody safe is to not take them away from everybody, not take them away from anybody. If you look at the statistics, if you can look at the statistic that were just gathered by the Crime Prevention Research Center, and you can search that on Google, do your own fact checking if you want to. But the Crime Prevention Research Center did a study, and they compiled all the data between 1950 and 2016. 98.4% of all mass shootings happened in gun-free zones. Why do you think that is? I tell you what, I just came from the biggest gun show in the world last weekend in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We had over 50,000 people come through there, and we had hundreds of thousands of guns. I wouldn't want to try to guesstimate, but definitely hundreds of thousands of guns in the building, and hundreds of thousands, probably millions of rounds of ammunition in the building. And do you know how many shots were fired in there? Not one. Do you know why? Because nobody's that stupid. Nobody's dumb enough to go into a gun show. Nobody's dumb enough to go into a police station and just start shooting and think that they're going to get away with it. If you do that, then clearly your point is to kill yourself, and you just don't have the guts to do it yourself, so you want somebody else to shoot you. But aside from that, nobody's shooting up the places where everybody knows there are guns. Recent findings have determined that the animal that shot up the nightclub in Orlando went to Disney first and saw all the armed guards and decided that that was not going to be a good place to do what he ended up doing later on at a nightclub. He went to a nightclub because nobody can shoot back at him. So I would implore Congress to abolish gun-free zones, because it is clearly the only way that we can make sure that all of us are safe. And anybody who thinks that there's a place that you can be completely safe, you're also mistaken. I'm sorry. I'm going to put out another video here soon about that. But let's just get rid of gun-free zones. Let's not tell people that they don't have the right to defend themselves, no matter where they are. Because, again, the people who abide by the law are the ones who the gun-free zones are affecting. And if you're a criminal, by definition, you already broke laws, or you don't care about laws, and so a sign on the door, sure as heck, is not going to stop you. Okay, guys, I know I've rambled on a lot. I've given a lot of thoughts, and maybe I've brought some fresh viewpoints to somebody who wasn't necessarily, didn't feel the same way that I do, but I just want to leave you with one last thought, and it goes back along with this criminal thing. We know for a fact that criminals can't be legislated. We know that crime cannot be legislated. We know this because schools have been drug-free zones for years, and clearly we haven't kept the drugs out of schools. But I want to give you this to ponder about how true this is, because we already know criminals don't follow laws. If they did, number one, we wouldn't have criminals. But if they did, we wouldn't need to have guards in our prisons, because we could just tell the prisoners, well, here are the rules, and we trust that you'll follow them. But we know better. We know that they're not going to follow rules, and we know that we need to have those guards. We know that criminals aren't going to follow the rules, and so we need to have guards in the real world too. But the police can only do so much. They can't be everywhere at the same time, and they can't get to where the bad stuff happens always in time to stop it. And so I feel like the best way to protect myself is to not take away my options, the best way that I can protect my family is to not take away the options to carry a firearm, and to not take away my wife's option to carry a firearm when I'm not with her to protect her. So that's the thought I want to leave you on. I do have a couple videos that I'm going to post a link to in the comments section below that kind of back that up a little bit of what can happen when there is and when there is not a firearm present when bad stuff happens to somebody. So thanks for listening. I appreciate all your support. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so. If you want to get notifications when more of these videos come up, click the little bell beside subscribe so that you get notified about that. And feel free to leave me comments, leave me some feedback. If you like what you heard, give me a thumbs up and share the video. Thanks, guys.